This morning I want to make a video about the ignorance of some dog owners. You see my garbage can in the middle of my driveway, and on it I have a sign that I had to put on here. It says, "Your dog does not belong in my driveway. I am training a service dog and do not want to include your mistakes. Thank you." The reason this happened is I have this is like a 20-foot driveway. The ignorance of people about dogs in general, respect for other dogs in other yards. Jeff Gellman has a series of videos about being leash reactive, and what that means is when you have a dog that is on a leash and when it sees another dog, it starts barking and acting up and everything. That's called leash reactive. And when I saw that, I realized that I can't think of a dog in the neighborhood other than Scout that isn't leash reactive. So I've been working with Scout specifically. He ignores dogs on leashes, which is wonderful. I've had a couple of incidents where we've had very small dogs overexcited on their leashes, and he just doesn't pay attention to them. Yesterday became a different issue. So the driveway's about 20 feet. It's another 20 feet maybe up to the step. Scout and I were sitting here. I'm trying, we had to go backwards a little bit on the house training. I'm taking him out as often as possible. And he's only 5 months old, so this is his yard, and he knows what's his yard. And what happens is we come outside, there's some kind of an incident or distraction, and then he gets a little bit nervous and he'd rather go inside where it's safe to pee. So I'm working on getting this away from him because he does know the difference. And so anyway, I'm about here last night, 4 o'clock, 4:30, somewhere around there. And there's a woman that walks by all the time with a small apricot poodle. And a lot of the people in the neighborhood use retractable leashes. And they're on the phone, or they're talking with other people they're walking with. They pay no attention to their dog. But this woman, she's done it a few times, but last night she really ticked me off. She came from that direction, walking down the road. What Scout usually does when a dog goes by is just sit here and watch them. So she gets to about where the garbage can is. She lets the leash out on her dog, and her dog is a little terror, really. No manners. She's like 20 feet away from the dog itself. Scout is, we think, a foxhound. Her dog is apricot, but is like bright red. Does not have a docked tail. So it's like this little aggressive fox coming into our yard. And she let it come all the way up to the light post, letting the leash out, letting this dog come up until she got Scout to be barking at her dog. Completely undermining my training and completely screwing it up as far as him not becoming leash reactive. So I'm furious. I'm still furious this morning. So I put the sign on the garbage can. I was talking to a friend about it, and she said, well, if you go knock on their door and explain and that you have a service dog and you have a disability, and I've had it with that. I do not have to justify myself to anyone. And this is my yard. If you run into this, because you'll run into this all the time as you're training a service dog, there are a few ways to deal with it. What I did, because she was going to let her dog keep coming at us, I backed up, and Scout and I stood right here, and I said, I said to her, he's a puppy, I don't know how he's going to react. That was my diplomacy. she kept letting him come, and I said, "Get your dog out of my yard." So what she does is she pulls the dog, pulls him to where the tree is, and says, "My dog's not in your yard." And you know, what kind of intelligence is it that you let a 5-pound, probably expensive poodle go up to a 30-pound dog in its own yard, barking and being aggressive at it? I don't get it. How can people... She obviously could care less about her dog. And from my standpoint, and I've never seen Scout react to a situation like that. For all I know, he could pull against the leash I have on him, grab the dog, and the dog could be dead in a second. You know, and it would not have been my fault because she's letting the dog up in my yard. So I backed up to here. We sat here. I yelled at the woman. She finally left. As she walked away, she let her dog out further on a leash. And I don't remember if she was on the phone or doing something. In other words, no respect for anything. My property, my dog, After she left, I took Scout in just to go back in, gather myself for a moment, and of course he peed on the floor. Because he was like, well, this is my yard, I have to mark that somewhere, and he did it in the house where it was safe. So then I brought him back out. We sat here again. I walked him to where we had been. Then I put the sign on the garbage can. I took the rag I had cleaned the pee up with. I wiped it all over the garbage can, and I brought him out, and we sat next to that garbage can for 15 or 20 minutes. And then I walked him around his driveway. I walked him around the perimeter. This is his yard. So I don't know all the different ways you could approach a problem like that. When COVID hit, a lot of people got small apartment dogs, and now they're walking them without any care as to the proper way to walk a dog. Her dog is in danger, not only from a potential bigger dog like Scout. There is traffic. Retractable leashes are not very strong at all. I literally, this is what happens to me. I look at the person and go, what are you thinking? So I would like to mention this to the governor, because part of this problem is the lack of education about service dogs and the law. So if she pulls this again, or if I have to complain to the landlord who also owns her building, if this becomes an issue, if I have to call the dog officer and say, go give her, read her the riot act on how to control your dog, if it goes there, I'm still having to explain to someone, I have a disability and she's violating that. And what she risks doing is harassing a disabled person, which then is breaking the law even further. So, Governor, a simple education program for dog owners about respecting other people's property, and especially respecting service dogs or training or just common sense, is needed, especially since COVID. A lot of people adopted dogs and they don't know what they're doing, or if they do, they don't care. So I'm sorry you all had to stare at my garbage can, but that's what I'm staring at. And I'm going to bring Scout out in a few minutes, and we're going to sit next to that garbage can. And it's not a lemonade stand, but anybody that goes by, I'm going to hand them a little card with the ADA laws on it. And Governor, I ask you to do the same. These are some of my canes. I need to add here, Governor, that as I've been training Scout, I've been more or less on the roads near my house with my canes and my walker, and with pulling a skateboard to teach the dog to pull. There is no way that people don't realize I have a disability. I've had this disability for many years. I've had a service dog for 11 years in this apartment. There's no way that this woman didn't do that on purpose. So if someone with a small, vulnerable dog is going to try and aggressively intimidate a disabled person, you need an education program out there. And Scout agrees.